Okay, so 10-1 activity. We're just reviewing some of the stuff that we did a few days ago. It says to graph the parabola. Anytime that you're told to graph the parabola, you're given the equation. The best thing to do to start off with is find out what this AOS is. What's that stand for?
Axis of symmetry.
Okay, axis of symmetry. Okay, the axis of symmetry is equal to the opposite of B divided by 2A. Now, careful to make sure that you multiply the 2 and the A separately, then do the division. So, the opposite of B. Well, B is negative 4. The opposite then is positive. Divided by 2 times A, that's 2 times 2. And again, we do this multiplication first. So that's 4 divided by 4, which equals 1. X equals 1 is my axis of symmetry. That means to cut this parabola in half, I would put down a dotted line at x equals 1. Now, since this cuts my parabola in half, I know the x-coordinate of my vertex. Right away, I know that the vertex is going to start off with 1 something. Somewhere on that dotted line is the vertex, where it starts to either open up or down. So to find out what the y-coordinate is, I plug in 1 into my equation. So 1, and I'll plug that in. 2 times 1 squared minus 4 times 1 minus 5, and you end up with what number? What'd you get? Negative 7? That's about right. So 1, negative 7 is your vertex. That's where we start. Write 1, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Here's where it starts to either open up or down. Hopefully it's opening upward. Then I plug in a number that's close to it. One nice and easy number is 0. 0 is close to 1. If I plug in 0 now, 2 times 0 squared minus 4 times 0 minus 5, I end up with negative 5. So I have the coordinates 0, negative 5. Not left or right, but down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I know this point exists, then I can flip that, mirror that across to right there. And I know that point also exists. So I don't even need to plug in 2. I already know it's going to be negative 5 if I did this correctly. Now I can plug in another number. Okay, maybe I'll plug in, well, 1, 2, 3. Plugging in 3 now into my equation. What do I get? Well, what did you get when you plugged in 3?
1.
You get 1? Yeah. So plugging in 3, I end up with 1. Right 3, up 1. I got that point right here. I can mirror that across. It has to be 2 spaces away in the other direction. Some of you I saw did not exactly mirror it correctly. Double check. It should be the exact same distance away. 2 away here, 2 away there. It should be the same distance. If it's not, and graphing correctly, then you could be points taken off. Okay, now connect the dots. This is usually enough to be able to graph this. And does this look like a max or a min? Yeah, this point right here is a minimum. It has a bottommost point. Not a topmost point, but it has a bottommost point. So it is a minimum. Next one. Graph this parabola. Same idea. I'll do the opposite of B over 2A. Opposite of B in this case is negative 4. 2 times A, well, that's 2 times negative 1. That's negative 4 divided by negative 2, or positive 2. So at x equals 2. At x equals 2 is my axis of symmetry. I'll draw a dotted line. At x equals 2. Remember that anything that has x equals a number is a vertical line. Y equals a number is a horizontal. So x equals 2, I'll start there, and I already know my vertex is going to start with 2. 2 something. Somewhere on that dotted line it starts. So I plug in 2, negative on the outside of my parentheses. On the outside of my parentheses. And what do you get when you plug in 2? Well, that's negative 4 plus 8. That's positive 4. 4 minus 1, yes, is 3. You do end up with a point 2, 3. That's your vertex. When it comes to your quiz, I'll remind you, we only have one more section to go before we have a quiz. 10-2 is all we need to get through. It's not too bad, not too complicated. I'm thinking maybe Tuesday next week, possibly, for the quiz. But we'll see. Grabbing this point now. 2, 3. That's right. 2 up 3. 1, 2, 3. That's where it starts. Then I plug in a number that's close to that. Thinking 1 might be easiest. 1 squared plus 4 times 1 minus 1. And 1 is on the inside of the parentheses. The negative is on the outside. So that's negative 1 plus 4. That's 3. 3 minus 1. We end up with 2. We got the point 1, 2. Mirroring that point, I can put the other one right next to it. Another nice and easy point. Plug in. You could go to 4, but I think 0 might be easier. Plug it in 0. It eliminates the squared part, the 4, and all we're left with is this part right here, negative 1. So 0, negative 1. I might be able to fit another point on here. Maybe I'll plug in, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's plug in 5. See what we get. 5 squared is 25. That's negative 25. Plus 20. And then negative 1, that's negative 6. Yeah. So we have the point 5, negative 6. That'll fit on here, and it'll help me complete this graph a little bit more. 5, negative 6, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Same distance away, 3 away, and connecting the dots. Remember, they shouldn't be straight lines. If you have straight lines, you didn't graph it correctly. Parabola does not have straight lines. And a maximum or a minimum, definitely a maximum. You can always tell whether there is going to be a maximum or minimum just looking at the graph or the equation. The equation has a negative out in front. It's going to have a maximum. Negative out in front of the leading coefficient.
Is it always like that?
That will always be the case. Okay? Same idea with the one before that. It didn't have a negative out in front, and it had a minimum. Could be something just easy to remember. And that's all that we needed to do. Just a little review on 10.1 before we move on to 10.2 tomorrow.